Hey everyone, this is James with Linspiration, and today we're going to talk about how to photograph steam. Someone on the Pro Q&A forum, Caitlin, asked here, hey, a friend of mine is hosting a small photo competition and the subject is water. They said that they were going to be looking for creativity, so I thought I could take a picture of steam coming out of a mug for something different. The only problem is that the last time I tried to take pictures of steam, it didn't work out so well. But I thought I'd try again, as I've seen some pretty cool pictures of steam, and was wondering if you could talk a bit about it and give some tips on it. So, here's Caitlin's picture of steam, and that's right, it's difficult to see the steam. So, let's learn today how to capture steam in a better way. My portfolio of steam looks something like this. I've never tried taking pictures of steam before. How in the world am I supposed to give tips on a subject I have never taken pictures of? So what I decided to do is pull out my little lightbox, and I pulled out a essential oils diffuser, plugged that thing in, stuck it in my lightbox, picked up some old matting, dark matting to put in the background, and then of course got myself a light to experiment with the steam. And of course, I always try to use, when I'm using the Lightbox, I love plugging in my little remote that allows me to take pictures. When I am not behind the camera, I can be tweaking things in the Lightbox and be snapping pictures as I set them up in the Lightbox. So, with that set up, I pulled out my pencil and paper to write down the discoveries that I made while photographing steam for the first time. My first setup was side lighting. With side lighting, I have my camera here pointing at the subject with light coming in from the side. You can't see the light there, but it's kind of shining in from the side. This was my first picture. Hey, not bad for the first picture of ever taking a picture of steam, but much to be desired. I'm using a 50mm lens, shooting in the manual modes at aperture 2.8, ISO 100, and 1/13 of a second. To get the highest quality, I'm using an ISO 100, and because I don't really need a very wide depth of field, I'm using f2.8, and that left me with 1/13 of a second to get a picture exposed that I could actually see something. So, that's the way this picture turned out, and I kind of didn't like how bright my subject was, so I underexposed. The problem was, when I underexposed and I could see the subject, I could not see the real subject. I'm trying to photograph steam here. I couldn't see the real subject. So, what do? I overexpose. I kind of go back and I tweak this, and now I'm as low as 1/4 of a second. And my subject is super washed out, but hey, I can see the steam more, and I'm really wanting to take a picture of the steam, so hey, that's cool. That's what I want. So, the first takeaway of the 7 different discoveries that I made that day, the first takeaway is to make sure you overexpose the steam. It doesn't mean you overexpose the entire picture necessarily, just the steam. Make the steam as bright as possible. Overexpose that steam. And I would say that's the second most important thing, and later on we're going to discover what's most important, as well as the others, for a total of 7 discoveries today that I made that day. Okay, so the next thing that I did was, I didn't like how the steam was all smooth looking. I thought I need a faster shutter speed. So I want to see that shape in there. So what did I do? I pulled as much light in as possible with the aperture. I pulled ISO higher, and then I tried 1/80th of a second. And that is definitely better. I can see some shape in there. And so that's my second pull away here. Make sure to use a fast shutter speed when you're taking pictures of steam, because then you can actually get some shape and texture. Problem is, we've got a very bright foreground subject. The problem with side lighting, very bright subject here. So what do? To take care of that, I set up a little blockade. Okay, so we got our main light coming through here. Ooh, and it's blocking light from hitting the diffuser. The light is now only hitting the steam. Much better. Kind of solved that problem, right? Well, kind of have a problem over here. So, let me see. How am I going to take care of that? Well, we can take care of that by covering other light sources. All right, so there's this big window back here. That's a light source. Maybe there's a light, up on the ceiling. Maybe there's light reflecting off of a board there. There's maybe glare in the lens. Different things create glare and light and stuff. So basically, I just put up that big black deflector thing and just tweak things until the light in the background was gone. So now only the light from my main source of light is coming and hitting the steam. So hey, that's pretty cool. And I went ahead and decided to throw that in here as one of my discoveries. Just make sure to eliminate glare and reflections when you're taking pictures of the steam, because the darker the background, the better. All right, so here we got a cool picture, and I started snapping bunches of different pictures. Hey, I went and I blew on the steam. Isn't this kind of cool? Every single picture you take of steam is going to look different. It's kind of like snowflakes, I guess. Every picture you take is different. So I went ahead and threw that in here. Is also another discovery I made. Shoot until you've captured a pleasing shape, and you may need to take many pictures. Just get something that looks good. This setup is the best I can get for the side light. So once I got it all set up and looking cool, take a bunch of pictures until you get the shape that you're looking for. Okay, so side light, wonderful. Let's try backlighting. And here's my little setup now. I moved the camera over on this side, kept the light over here. The light's pouring plenty of light on the steam there, and I'm now looking at it from this angle. We got our backlighting. Here is my very first picture. This is the first picture I tried with backlighting. Amazing. We're already better than what we had with side lighting after tweaking side lighting. Our background is darker in this picture. The light on the subject, I didn't have to do anything. I mean, the light's all, it's blowing out on the back side there, but I'm not looking at the back side. I'm looking at the front side here. So the light's shining intensely through the steam, and the light just looks a whole lot better. But that's not the only benefit. Here's some other benefits. Look at this. This shot required 1600 ISO at 1/50th of a second. Now notice here we have ISO 100. So the quality of this image is much higher, and we're using a faster shutter speed, which is what I want, right? Okay, so this is a cool setup. Now let's tweak it. Remember I said we want to overexpose the steam? And obviously, this is not overexposed enough, so I overexpose, okay? So now I'm using, pull the ISO higher, make the shutter speed lower, slower. So, boom, now the steam is overexposed. So it's a good thing. And then, of course, removing that glare in the background to pull out just an incredible amount of steam there, you can see. Okay, so that's the best picture from the steam, but there's something that's pretty interesting about this. We have discovered that strong backlight is the most important thing. But what if you're in a situation where, you don't want to have a pure black background? What if you want to have it sitting in a kitchen or something? Okay, this is what we're gonna have to deal with. What I did to make a black background is I set up this background, so the light is shining over the background, it's shining onto the steam, and I've got my black background. But what I decided to do is I decided to remove the background altogether and just see what would happen. So I've got intense light on the steam. We're overexposing the steam, and the background, without being completely black, actually doesn't look too bad. Notice how it is sort of underexposed. It's darker back there. And I find this to be very, very interesting, because I've got a very bright light on the steam, and I'm overexposing the steam. I'm exposed on the steam and making the steam very bright. But because the light is so bright, and I'm exposing for the steam, the light on the steam is just so bright that it causes the rest of the picture to kind of fall into underexposure. The background falls in underexposure. The foreground here is also going to be kind of dark. So what you may need to do is, for number 3 and 4, as you're exposing for the steam and even overexposing for it, see if the background will be underexposed because the light's so bright. Make sure to get a really bright light so that you can have the background underexposed. And then, of course, use a fill light to fill in the foreground if you need it. Okay, so in this situation, I actually did not have a fill light, but because the background is kind of underexposed and the foreground is obviously going to be dark because we have a strong backlight hitting, the back side, but it's not hitting the front side, so we can have some dark in the foreground. You may need a fill light here. And I'm going to add that here. That's number 4, very important. If you're using strong backlight, then you will need to fill in the foreground a little bit. Okay, so these are the 7 main discoveries that I made, but I didn't want to stop there. I wanted to try, okay, what if I tried other side lighting, different types of light? So I went ahead and moved to front lighting. What would my pictures look like if I tried to use front lighting? So here's my little setup, the camera and the light both hitting the front. Didn't turn out too swell, especially compared to my backlighting. And not only are the settings okay here, they're better here, which is good, but the problem is I'm not capturing the steam. Like, I got better settings, but I'm not seeing the steam. Okay, so what do I try to do to see the steam? I try to overexpose, and it just really is looking horrible. Look at that. And then we have here tried underexposing. Well, maybe I'll block the light. So I set up my little blockade there, and sure enough, that looks better with the front light partially blocked. But now, because the light is so blocked, I'm starting to have to use super high ISOs, so oh well. Tried the top lighting. Here's my setup. The light coming from the top. Here's my camera coming in from the side, setting up with a black backdrop. Kind of a cool effect. I think that's kind of neat, but it's not really what I was looking for. So remove the glare and then tried to overexpose. Oops, I thought I had a picture for that, but then tried to overexpose it, and the top light I found is almost identical to side lighting. It's basically the same. So backlighting is your absolute, strong backlight is the absolute best, and any other kind of light is, second best. Now, before closing here, I wanted to ask, how fast is fast enough? Okay, so I wanted to think about this a little bit. What is a fast shutter speed when you're photographing steam? So how fast is fast enough? I asked myself that question. So before I tore down my studio, I experimented 1 second, half a second, 10th of a second, 50th of a second. It's still blurring in here. I don't like that. But here we go. 1/50th of a second is starting to get the texture. And then 100, 200, 400, around right in here someplace, it is actually capturing the texture. So here for point number 5, 1/200th of a second or more for shutter speed. Make sure to use strong backlight. Overexpose for the steam. That will, if you have a strong enough light, the background will go into underexposure. The fill light will help fill in the foreground if needed. Use 1/200th of a second or faster. Shoot until the pleasing shape is captured and eliminate glare and reflections. So there you go, Caitlin. I hope that will help you get some amazing pictures for your competition.